January 2016, the government of Guyana established the Ministry of Public Telecommunications. Now we have so many other industries in this country. So why would the government establish a ministry specifically for public telecommunications? There is probably no better person to answer that question than the person who heads that ministry, the Honorable Kathy Hughes. Minister, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, now there is the rice industry, the sugar industry, the gold industry, so many industries that do not have a specific ministry to take forward policies and programs to develop those industries. But our government has established a ministry specifically for public telecommunications. What's the rationale behind this?
Well, you know, Beverly, I think it was an extremely visionary move on the part of the president. Because when you look at the field of information communication technologies, ICT is actually an area that actually transcends and interlinks all these different sectors. So if you look at the importance of technology worldwide in ensuring that you can produce products more efficiently, that you can reach levels of development faster, that people can communicate better, then you realize that an ICT-based society enables a country to ensure that they're producing a knowledge-based society. And therefore, the possibilities of ensuring that you can compete regionally, internationally, you can produce products, you can export, you can develop apps, you can actually play a real role in the information technology world today if you are up to scratch in that area. And so I like to say that when we look at the importance of ensuring that we have better broadband connectivity, meaning internet access in communities all over Guyana, then you realize how important this is. And believe it or not, increasing internet access in communities is one of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Okay. And also, believe it or not, research has proven beyond the shadow of a doubt that once you have a population that has access to the internet, there's a corresponding development and increase in your gross domestic product. And why is that so? Imagine if you're a student, once you are able to do better research online, once you're able to learn about things, then it makes you a better educated individual. And certainly in all spheres of life, as I said, the importance of being up to date with the technology and how we use it can guarantee rapid development.
Okay, so that brings me to the question, Minister, what is your vision for rolling out this sort of access across Guyana?
Well, you know, one of the things we want to do is very, very important to this, is using the technology that is available today to produce a better informed society and to ensure that we provide better services. And these services are in the area of the services government and government agencies and ministries provide to citizens. And here I'm talking also about the services that a citizen would get at the passport office, through the NIS, at the Guyana Revenue Authority. Those are all government agencies that provide services to citizens and consumers. But also, very importantly, our mandate includes providing communication and services to other government agencies. So the Ministry of Public Telecommunication, I like to say that the engine of our ministry is the e-government unit. And there we're looking at as to how is it that the e-government unit can help ministries communicate with each other better. And the fundamental in being able to do that is the use of our fiber optic network. Many people will know that in 2011, we actually had the Chinese fund a fiber optic network that goes from Berbice all the way to Essequibo. And what we're trying to do is to ensure that lots of government agencies connect to that fiber optic network. Believe it or not, it was actually not put into operation until 2015 when this government came into being. And so it was really lying dormant for a while. What that means is that ministries are guaranteed a better service, a better internet service. And therefore the communication, the connectivity opens the doors for many things. So I mentioned the passport office.
Yes.
Our vision, as you know, just recently, we had a very malicious rumor that went out that the fees at the passport office were going to be increased.
Yes.
And then we had over 500 people applying and coming down to the passport office.
Yes.
I like to say that even if you were in the US and a passport office that had been geared to dealing with maybe 100 people a day ended up one day with 1,000 or 500 people, it would have caused a major administrative problem. But part of the fundamental, which is what we're looking at in the agencies like the passport office, is that ICT for us means that all we've been able to do so far is that we would put the passport application form on a website. And so the citizens can go and download the form and fill it in. But the reality is that there are about 4 other steps that really could be done with that passport form. And technology today allows you to complete those steps. So if I'm using that as an example, we want to get to the stage very soon, by next year, where you not only have the passport form, but you can fill it in. That form then goes back to the passport office. That there are mechanisms in place for people and the staff at the passport office to go through your form to make sure you have all the information there. If you have missed anything, they send it back to you. Okay. John, Susan, you forgot to put in this part. And the end result is that that whole process that you would have had to come down to the passport office, line up, take a number, sit there for 5 hours, not forgetting that unfortunately we have people not from Georgetown, but as we saw recently, yes, people from Berbice, from Essequibo, that come down and waste. And all those hours waiting to be able to get there, to hand over their form. We want to set up a system where if there are 10 stages, 8 of the 10 stages can be done online. And then you get a date to come into the passport office where they can accommodate you on an appointment system in a short space of time. And that's when you would probably do the final touches to your application. This is where you would take your photograph and hopefully have to come back just to pick up your passport. So that is the vision as to where we can actually, in a technological front, provide better services to the citizens. And of course, the same thing, the government agencies. So that is a very important aspect of our mandate. What I like to say too is that there are 3 very important areas that I think that the use of this technology and having a ministry that focuses on how we drive this development forward, how we truly transform, that is really the mandate of what we have. And in the area of health, in the area of education, and in the area of e-commerce, those are huge avenues that I think the technology can benefit citizens. And as the president and this administration talks about, providing a good life for all Guyanese.
I would want us to come back a bit to the good life for all Guyanese part a bit later on in our interview. But you mentioned something very interesting, one of your focal areas being health.
Yeah.
Can you explain for us how that is going to work? What are the thoughts in this area?
Certainly, I'd love to. You know, we have huge challenges in Guyana because our development on the coast has been, way ahead of the development in a lot of our hinterland areas. And if you think of it in simple terms, what we have said for many, many years in Guyana is that dependent on where you're born, you have a different chance in terms of your ability to access good health care, in your ability to access education. So in a lot of the hinterland areas, we don't have the range of hospitals, the immediacy of, in emergency situations, having doctors and hospitals and health services readily available. As you would know, in a lot of our hinterland, especially our indigenous communities in those areas, it's a health worker or it is a health clinic or a medics that is trying to provide those services. The technology exists today that we can create, and that's what we're doing, creating ICT hubs and creating a nexus between health centers and areas that would have connectivity, that would have internet access, that allows a doctor in Georgetown to be able to speak to that medic. So imagine, again, if I give you a very specific example, we've got a patient in Nappy Village, for example, who has a complaint. The medic is not a doctor. It might be a scenario that they're not sure about. Before they put that individual on a plane and have the challenge of finding a plane and shipping them to Georgetown, with the requisite technology, that health worker and the patient could be in that health center and have a doctor dial in. Yes. And that doctor would be able to speak to the patient, understand what the symptoms are, depending on what the symptoms are, maybe actually show. If it's a rash, you know, the technology is there today that the doctor would be able to see that specific rash and be able to offer expertise in the area of health. So it has tremendous benefits in terms of ensuring that we provide throughout the length and breadth of this country better health care. And that is only one example. In the area of education, imagine we have a challenge with teachers in the Georgetown area. Yes. We have, so you can imagine the challenge it is where, unfortunately, a lot of qualified teachers don't want to go to hinterland communities. The lure of life in the city in any part of the world is a strong lure. And therefore, again, to be able to ensure that the teacher that is an excellent math teacher at the Bishop's High School or at QC or at St. Rose's, that we could put a camera and technology in place and this classroom at the Bina Hill Institute, just out of Anai, could actually participate in that same classroom simultaneously as that teacher is teaching to that class at Queen's College. It means that the Bina Hill Institute or any school is able to benefit from the skills of that teacher. And I want to emphasize that this is in real time. And we actually tested this. Just last week, we had a launch of the President's initiative, because as you know, we're now giving out laptops to teachers, because teachers need to be able to prepare their lesson plans. They need to be able to use the technology to better deliver classes and instruction to students. And on that occasion, I want to mention that we highlighted the fact that we've created internet access in 100 schools and educational establishments. And I'm sad to say that I don't think that people understand the importance of that. It means that a teacher can actually incorporate into their learning, their teaching aids, maybe a demonstration that is on YouTube somewhere on one particular aspect. We can use existing training manuals, training demonstrations, training options as part of what you deliver in a classroom. And so at the opening, at the launching of the program last week, we were able to highlight that the Tain campus and the UG campus are now connected to the government e-network unit. And so we had the president. The students at Tain were able to participate in the discussion, in the launch, to see exactly what was happening, real time. And there was a part in the launch where the president got up, went over and spoke to the students, and they could respond to him. Nice. So that is the interconnectivity that is possible. And we have demonstrated that we can do it. So I'd like to say that, you know, for a long time, we have talked about fixing the challenges that we have in Guyana. We have talked about really transforming our economy and really the use of technology and this Ministry of Public Telecommunications can deliver on really doing that. In so many areas, it takes 10 or 15 years to do something. But in the area that I've described to you, in these last couple of minutes, you can see that we can really transform. We have an opportunity to learn from everything that every country in any part of the world has done. And instead of going through that learning curve, we can take the best practices and implement it immediately. And that's what we're working towards. I did a recent trip to China, yes, and it was amazing to see in an exhibition exhibitors from every part of the world that has state-of-the-art technology available. And so we have made some decisions, we have put it in our budget, and we're going to be able to put the technology, once it's approved in our budget, in several communities, so that those classrooms in the hinterland will have a camera, will have the network connectivity, and would be able to benefit from either health, education, and of course in the area of private sector development and e-commerce.
Okay, Minister, I just can't allow this to pass. You just mentioned the 2017 budget.
Yes.
So what can we expect? What's your immediate plan?
Well, one of the problems that is very sad, and I know it may sound political, but it is a political issue, is that we have a good fiber optic network, as I mentioned, from Molson Creek to Essequibo. There are a couple gaps in that network. And so what we're actually doing is that right now, the e-government unit is you getting the technical skills. We're working with the Chinese to fill those gaps so that those areas where there are public services being provided, where there's internet access, we can improve on that. Now, many would know that we spent close to $6 million on a cable that was going to provide the same kind of services in the south, meaning that the fiber optic cable that was damaged, that was never laid properly, that we spent $6 million on, would have taken traffic from the Georgetown area through to Mary all the way up to Lethem. So we've lost out a lot in that area. And so one of the things that we're having to go back and redo is how is it that we are going to be able to provide these services to the hinterland. There's no cable that goes there. And so we are now exploring, as our telecoms companies, Digicel and GT&T, as you know, quite a few of them have cell sites in hinterland areas. And so we're looking to how is it that the government can ensure that we have a cable that takes traffic as far as Lethem, and what kinds of collaborations can we forge with our telecoms companies so that we can then maybe through satellite set up satellite dishes that would then allow smaller communities in the hinterland regions to be able to tie in to this technology. So a lot of what we're asking for in the budget is funds for the infrastructure. As I said, this network, the fiber optic network, the government network, was established in 2011. There's been no funds available to service that network. And so, again, there are funds in there to be able to get into a servicing contract with a partner that can ensure that, A, we develop and we keep the network at a high level of optimacy to ensure efficiency. And as I said, we're looking at expanding. We've got costs in there for satellite, using, as I mentioned, GT&T, Digicel. I've asked them both for proposals. So we want to get connectivity out to as many areas in the hinterland. I want to use a very specific example. In my tourism function last year, I went to one of what I think is one of the finest examples of community-based tourism, not only in Guyana, but I know quite a bit now on what's being done in other parts of the region, and it's a unique model. So imagine me going to Surama and I meet there a lady who does the most incredible hand-woven indigenous Amerindian hammocks. And she offers me for sale a hammock. I look at this thing and it is just absolutely beautiful. I buy it. That poor lady only has an option to sell her hammocks when somebody physically walks through her village and she's able to meet them. If we are able to put in a post office in Surama, for example, internet access, and that lady gets assistance at that post office in developing a Facebook page. Imagine she could very easily put up pictures of her hammock, the price, a little blurb on what she wants to sell, how she's going to do it, a bit about the indigenous culture, because remember, they're actually taking the cotton and spinning it, and then they are weaving this hammock, so it has a value. She could then maybe once a week pop into the post office and spend 15 minutes, half an hour on the internet. She would not have had that access at her home in Surama, but she can pop in there and see if she has orders. She then would be able, with the same post office, to ship her stuff to Georgetown or to Germany or any part of the world. And so I'd like to use that as a simple example of the e-commerce potential. We have fantastic, innovative young people, but it's to actually give them the outlet for their great ideas. And so just the other day I was hearing about somebody who wanted to export tamarind balls. Now when I heard about that, my sister in Washington would be ordering tamarind balls at least every 2 weeks. So we know that there is a market for that. And therefore, only with something like ICT would we be able to match her opportunity to produce tamarind balls in Guyana. And if she properly packages it, the world is her market. And she could sell her tamarind balls to every Guyanese that wants tamarind balls in any part of the world. And so there are a lot of other residual things that this ministry has to look at to provide that platform effectively. Here I'm talking about the proper regulations and the legislation. We've just passed the new telecoms amendment bill, and that allows more players to come into the market. We're beefing it up, the Public Utilities Commission, and that's the agency that allows citizens, if they have complaints on any of our utilities, I want to see them approach the Public Utilities Commission to engage them to deal with some of the complaints citizens have. For too long, we have complained and we've not let the institutions work for themselves. We've depended on a friend and somebody in here to try and fix it. Contact, exactly. And what this government has done in the last year, which we really don't see, is beef up those institutions. So you can go as a citizen and regardless of who you know, make that complaint. And the Public Utilities Commission would be mandated to inquire into your complaint on the part of the citizen. They're there to serve the citizen's interests. There are other areas that we have to look at that I'm hoping we will look at in early next year. The whole area of banking, the whole area of international payment systems that allow that same entrepreneur to have a bank account that allows them through PayPal or some other locally produced payment system to collect a payment for those same tamarind balls or for that same hammock in a way that she doesn't have to physically expect the person to send cash and hand over cash. For too long, the development of Guyana has been hindered because we don't have payment systems that are on par with other parts of the world. Yes. I'll give you an example. We have a challenge with paying our pensioners. The amount of money the post office has to spend sending monies all over the length and breadth of Guyana to pay the pensioners, when really everywhere else in the world today, We have a principle of mobile money, which works very well in India, which works very well in Kenya, and they have been able to train pensioners and all levels of society in using their telephone to collect their payments
And to make payments.
and to make payments,
Money.
electronic money. And that's happening all over the world. And really, the time has come where Guyana has to move very rapidly to that level.
Okay, which brings us to my wrapping up question, Minister. In all that you have outlined, the government's broad vision is that of a good life for all. And I think you have dealt quite adequately with how your ministry plans to transform lives across Guyana, stretching from the coast to the hinterland. But part of the government's vision also is that of a green economy. Is there any way how your ministry feeds in to that?
Absolutely. And this is another area that really excites me. Everything is so interconnected, Beverly. We are talking about creating ICT hubs in the most remote of communities. There's no GPL there. There's no, right now at this point in time, no hydro dam that's providing electricity to these areas. So this whole thrust has to be supported by a very aggressive green economy policy that looks at the renewable sources of energy. So hand in hand with these hubs has to be provision of superior solar farms that can man most of these ICT hubs that we're creating. So the development of solar, the development of wind energy in some areas, the public doesn't know, but the pressure is on within this government to find additional sources and projects that we can develop our hydro potential. We've not put that aside when we put aside Amalia. All we said is that that was far too expensive given what it was giving us. And therefore, right now, on the table, there are a few projects that are being investigated. And I'm convinced that, very soon we're going to hear about that because our hydropower is a huge area. And therefore, the possibilities of ensuring that we have power for these projects through renewable sources is a reality. And we can only deliver if the two things go hand in hand.
Minister, I think that is a perfect note on which we can wrap up this interview. I do thank you for your time, and I know there's a whole lot more that we'd like to discuss. I'd like to discuss the development of a gaming industry, for example. And I'd like to also learn a bit more about you. I'm sure it's an awesome task, being saddled with the responsibility of taking this ministry forward. So, can I invite myself for an interview at some?
I would love to have you back. I would love to have you back. I've actually enjoyed this. This is a real honor for me to serve in this position. And it is also an honor for me to serve in this administration. And, I remember the president saying to me, I want you to look at public telecommunications. And I was totally out of the box. I was like, what? Public telecommunications? I know it's part of what I used to do, but I thought I was a tourism girl. But I am excited because this really is the foundation that we have to build. And just the other day I said to the president, I said, Mr. President, you were right. Yes.
Minister, again, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.